What is going on with this Arizona offense, and is there a way to get it corrected? And are the people there that can even make this one happen?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. This show is brought to you today by FanDuel. Check it out. All right. And you know what, FanDuel, this is the time of the year. Get your money in, get your bets in, and it is fun. It is interactive. FanDuel. Okay, now we are going to talk about the Arizona offense and everything that does go with that. Listen. Going into the year, we talked about it, that this should be a really, really good offense. There's no doubt about it. And I think the thing about it is you have a quarterback in Noah Fifita that's coming off a National Freshman of the Year campaign. We all know that Noah is good. We have seen Noah be good. You got T-Mac, the best wide receiver in the country. And there is obviously, there's a lot more where that came from. You return 4 or 5 offensive linemen. Not only do you return 4 or 5 offensive linemen, you got multiple guys that are going to play in the NFL as well. So there's certainly that. Then when it comes to this, the skill position guys, the running backs have been just fine. Not only have the running backs been just fine, Alonzo Carter has done a really, really good job with this squad. So there's that. But there's a lot of issues here, obviously. And first, Dino Babers was a catastrophic hire. There's I don't know that there's any way around that. The game clearly had passed Dino Babers by. You watched him, and it looked like he was running something out of the 1930s. It's pretty much just the way it is. And then everything was super, super slow pace, slow motion. And again, the one thing that we can stop with is the delayed handoffs. Those have to stop, and they have to stop right now. Those are awful. Then there's the route trees are absolutely bizarre. It's basically, you go deep or you're right there. That is something too that I think with and we'll just start with the wide receivers. I don't know. Bobby Wade has not done a very good job here. I don't know that there's any way to put it. Brent Brennan talked about how that they got guys going in the wrong directions, this and that. But I don't look at this wide receiver room and say that has been a total success by any means. So there's obviously that. But listen, when it comes down to it, I think the first thing that you got to be able to put, though, is there is no identity whatsoever with this offense. And that to me is a massive, massive issue. How do you go into this season and have absolutely no identity? That to me is the issue. You knew that this was kind of a go for broke year, that you had to be able to win this season. And I think that it just feels like there was absolutely nothing in there. There was absolutely nothing in there that indicated that they had an idea of what was going on. Again, the running back is okay, but the running back situation is pretty good. But again, Noah has, and I'm going to put this on the coaching staff. If you admit that you've got guys going in the wrong directions, whatever the case may be, that is an issue that is not the quarterback. And not only is that an issue that is not the quarterback, that's just an offensive scheme perspective. Now, talking with one of the parents of one of the players on the team, he also said something to the effect of, he goes, well, he says the guards don't even look like they know where they're supposed to be pulling. Those are all issues that are bad. Those are all issues that are very, very bad. And I think that is something that you've got to be able to correct. You got to correct immediately. Also, why is Sam Olsen playing? Again, the personnel doesn't make a ton of sense. Why is Sam Olsen playing so much more than Kean Burnett? Kean Burnett is the one that looked like a breakout superstar in that game. And not only was he not utilized in that way, Sam Olsen at this stage in the game we also know that he's not Kean Burnett. And so the insistence on playing San Jose State guys just doesn't make a ton of sense to me at all. Ryan Stewart's kind of the same way. I'm not exactly sure why Ryan Stewart is out there, because again, those dudes they're just not good enough. I don't know what else to say. They're just not good enough. You've got to put the players out there. And we saw that offensive line. We saw that performance against Utah where we got where you watched it and you're like, okay, against Utah, you're like, all right, that's the line. Rhino, Deuced, Josh Baker. Then you've got obviously Big Jonah Savanea and Wendell Moy. So again, when you start messing with that and there isn't a obvious injury, I think you start wondering. You start wondering exactly where exactly this all is. Then when it comes to the receivers, I'll take the L on Jeremiah Patterson. Patterson just hadn't been good. I don't know what else to say. Patterson just hasn't been good. He dominated in practice. Anybody that was there knows that he absolutely dominated in practice. But I think the problem is that you watch it and you're like, you got to be able to contribute in games, and he's not been able to contribute in games. And not only has he not been allowed to contribute in games, I think that he's the kick returning, that ain't working either. So we'll find out. But again, that has not been something that has been at all impressive. Montana hasn't been bad, but again, you look at it and you're like, man, Montana, that Malachi Riley was the one that really needed to emerge, and that has not been the case at all. He's just not been that guy. And obviously he got hurt, so there's that. But again, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens because Matt Adkins is clearly better than Dino Babers. Dino Babers was, like I said, that was cut from something that the Dinos saw. That was cut from something that was almost prehistoric. Matt Adkins, at least I think, understands that the tight ends need to be utilized. But if this doesn't get corrected, Brent Brennan needs to get a real offensive coaching staff this offseason. And if you don't get that, then I think you kind of know that you're in probably a little bit over your head, because this has been a colossal waste of talent. Not only has it been a colossal waste of talent, it's been a team where you're like, where is the game plan? And I think that's the problem. And I think that's kind of where we're at. So we will find that one out. Now, when it comes to, what to correct, Noah's got to correct some things as well. Noah, obviously, it's been said time and time again, but Noah is locking in on T-Mac too much. You got to be able to spread the ball around. I get it. A lot of these dudes aren't getting open. And some of it, though, too, is I'm going to say if they're running the wrong routes or they're going the wrong way, I don't know what to say at that point. That's obviously incredibly concerning because you're this far in the season, and I don't know that you can necessarily blame a quarterback if guys aren't going in the right direction. One thing that I don't understand at all either is shotgun and then backing up 7-8 more steps. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me either. Everything just looks totally out of rhythm, and I think that's something where you're like, okay, you got to be able to get this one fixed. Now regarding T-Mac, we're going to talk about T-Mac here in a second. Obviously, he's fantastic, but the other receivers, there's just been absolutely nobody that's been able to step up to the plate. And I think that's certainly something that you were hoping for before the season, that there was going to be somebody that would be able to step up and be that guy. And I think it's Kean Burnett, but that's, at this stage in the game, you also have to wonder, does this coaching staff properly utilize him? And I don't know that, after that game against Utah, I think that we thought that was the case, but I also don't look at this now and be like, well, obviously they know how to utilize him, because again, Sam Olsen is not the answer. He's just not. You watch him and you're like, okay, that's not the answer. So there's obviously that. So we'll see how this one all does play out. Now, Going to talk about T-Mac here in just a second because T-Mac, I think, is he's putting up monster numbers, obviously, but there seems to be something that's a little bit in a disconnect. But first, let's talk about ROI. All right, times. Folks, it's time for your ROI Player of the Week. This week, we're showing some love to, let's see here. How about T-Mac? We're putting $100 on T-Mac right now through ROW, the ultimate platform where you get to directly support your favorite athletes. Download ROI on iOS or Google Play Store. No middleman, no collective making decisions for you. You decide who gets the backing, and it's easy for you. So download ROI for iOS and Android. Use code LOCKEDON to enter to win $5,000 in cash. Again, thank me later on this one. Very cool. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk. Let's talk a little bit now about T-Mac. T-Mac's putting up monster numbers, but something just feels a little bit off with him. This has always been kind of a quiet guy that doesn't say a ton. But he is visibly frustrated on the football field, and you kind of wonder where exactly is that coming from. And that is one thing that I'm not exactly sure. Obviously you're not winning, but this has never been somebody that has shown a huge propensity to have those kind of issues. So there's obviously that. With T-Mac as well, the way that he is able to go up and get the ball. Listen, that ball getting punched out, that was a huge, that was really, really rough. The one thing, though, that I don't get that he continues to do, though, is going up for one-handed catches when the two-handed catch will suffice just fine. That one has made absolutely no sense to me, and he keeps doing it. Listen, we all know that he can make the highlight catch. We've seen him make the highlight catch, but just go up with two hands. I mean, you're a superstar. You can make plays that nobody else can. If you have to do the one-handed catch, sure. But other than that, I think it makes perfect sense to just go up and try to use both of your mittens there and get it. But something just feels a little bit off with him, and I think that's where there's some concern, because he just isn't showing the same body language as last year. And not only is he not showing the same body language as last year, he's also showing that you're kind of in the same situation where it's like, are you just looking ahead to the league, or what's going on? I mean, I don't know that. I'm not going to say that, but it just feels like there's a little bit of a disconnect. So there's obviously that. Now let's talk a little bit then about, are there players that can emerge? Well, again, I'm kind of giving up on Jeremiah Patterson. Probably going to take the L on that one. But again, now I'm at the point when it comes to receiving threats that it's got to be Kean Burnett. Kean Burnett has got to be that dude. Not only does Kean Burnett have to be that guy, he's somebody that I think has shown next level potential. Burnett has not looked good, or has looked good, but the coaching staff, you got to continue to use him. If you don't continue to use him, I don't know what we're going to do at that point. Because listen, Montana's going to probably go for like 200, 300 yards this year, but he hasn't. Listen, that's never going to be your answer. He just doesn't have that kind of an upside. So that's always going to be something that I think is going to be a little bit of an issue. Then the O-line, I think if you play the right guys, I think the O-line is fine. Honestly, I like the deuce boost. I very much like, Rhino and how he's been able to play, but it just kind of feels like everybody's in and out. So it's going to be interesting. Now, this also goes back to just not having a real offensive coaching staff. And I think that's something that you got to obviously take a look at, when it comes to Babers. Now, to Brent Brennan's credit, he got rid of Babers very quickly. Matt Adkins came in, and I will say this: Arizona did move the ball a ton against Texas Tech, but you were getting into the red zone and you weren't getting touchdowns. You get into the red zone and you don't get touchdowns, you're probably going to stall out at some point. And I think that, honestly, that's exactly what happened to Arizona, is that they did stall out. And then And then with the special teams, you got to give Tyler Loop a ton of credit. Tyler Loop is the man. The problem, though, is that they're relying too much on Tyler Loop, and I don't know that that's going to. I don't know that that's ever going to actually work. So if you're just totally relying on your field goal kicker to win you games, I just don't think that that is something that will ever be advantageous for a team. Because again, you watch him and you're like, okay, cool, but you need touchdowns. And Loop's awesome, but you still need touchdowns. That to me is the issue. And then from the running back, got to give them a shout out. The running backs look good. I don't know what else to say about it. The running backs look good. Quali Conley, if anything, Quali Conley should be getting the ball more, not less. He has been he's good. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Quali Conley's good. And Quali Conley, not only is he good, he's a guy that can get, he can get upfield. He can make some people miss. He's not going to necessarily break a ton of long runs or anything, but he's good. There's no other way to really put it. He's really, really good. And there's also kind of a situation where you're like, he needs to be getting the ball 15, he needs to be getting the ball 15, 16 times again, and maybe even more. I mean, between him and Risano, they can both run the ball. They can both tote the rock. So we'll see how that one does play out. Also, when it comes to just overall, that's got to be kind of your bell cow at this point. If you don't know what your offense is, I don't know what to say about what your offense is. That's something they got to figure out. Now, let's talk about a bright spot, and we're going to talk about him a lot more tomorrow, but Dwayne Aquina has been an absolute treasure. Dwayne Aquina has been the man for this coaching staff, and not only has he been the man, he has been absolutely everything. What you like about Dwayne Aquina is from week to week, they continue to get better. He corrects issues. Obviously against New Mexico, the defense looked terrible. There was no contain, and they were just kind of letting guys go wherever they wanted. That was not a good performance. Then against NAU, significantly better. Kansas State, at the end of the day, I think with Kansas State, and I think at the end of the day with Kansas State, I think that I'll leave it at this. You scored it. You held them to enough points to win, and not only did you hold them enough points to win, you could have won that game, but the offense obviously wasn't good enough, and that to me is the issue. The offense just wasn't good enough. Now against Utah, obviously the defense was exquisite. I don't care who the quarterback was, whatever the case may be. Utah did not score enough to be able to win the game. And Arizona, from a physicality perspective, from a line perspective, from a basically everything perspective, was they were up in there. And that was something where Utah was, I don't think Utah was ready for that. Heck, I wasn't ready for that. That's where it was. That's kind of where it was at. And then the DBs have been, listen, Dwayne Aquina is the best defensive backs coach in a program or maybe in college football history. I don't know that you can really make the make that case, but at the same time, you also need to know that this is a spot where Tacario Davis, he's never going to intercept a pass. I think we know that at this stage. Tacario Davis will never intercept a pass. But Tacario Davis will always be around the football. He will always be deflecting footballs, things like that. That is just kind of where it is at with Tacario. But Dwayne Aquina obviously has done a massively important job with him, and that is something that I think that we need to definitely give Dwayne Aquina a lot of credit for. And honestly, Tacario Davis is a very good football player, just can't catch the ball. Emmanuel Carnley, this is definitely a DB that this coaching staff has very, very high hopes for, and quite frankly, they should. He's a DB that. When you watch him, that when you watch him, you're like, man, that dude's big. That dude's physical. Not only is that dude big and that dude physical, he also knows that he can also get in there, and he's got an instinct for the football. His best football is definitely in front of him. He's probably going to be one of your starting DBs next year, and I think Arizona is going to be. Better for the wear, better for the because of that. He's going to be in there. It'll probably be him, and it'll probably be Marquise Groves-Killebrew. That's something that you got to keep an eye on. Now we're going to talk about the D line here in a second, but first let's talk about FanDuel. First and foremost, FanDuel. Check it out. Visit FanDuel.com to look at odds. All kinds of good stuff there. Here's the deal with FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start your season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page when you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Again, good time to be able to bet on games. Awesome stuff going on. FanDuel, check it out. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's talk a little bit about, I'll tell you this. Let's talk a little bit now about the defensive line. The defensive line's been much better. Between Trey Smith, between the interior where you got Isaiah Johnson, where you've got with Stanley. Sure, it's not been perfect, but the defensive line has been more than good enough. And, again, that is a tip of the cap to Dwayne Akina. Dwayne Akina has got all these guys moving in the right direction, and I think that's something that is exciting about this. You also watch him, and you're like, okay, how much better can this unit get? Because they're continuously getting better. They're also, I think the next key that a lot of people have talked about is getting them to start forcing some turnovers. Because if you can start forcing some turnovers, then you're really cooking with gas. And I think that's got to be the next goal for Arizona, is to start forcing some turnovers. And, you did that obviously with Taj Brooks, because, listen, at this stage in the game, it's difficult to say this, but if you're the offense, or you're the defense, that right now the offense is struggling. It's not picking up. You got to be able to pick the pace up as well. And that's where I think it really comes down to this. This team needs to be able to. This team needs to really take care of business. And if they take care of business, then obviously they're going to be in good shape. Now, when it comes to the linebackers, Manu looks back. So obviously that looks good. Manu, Tay Brown, they look back. The defensive line has definitely come to play, and that has been better, and that's made things a lot easier. Like I said, Jacob Manu is a player that didn't just forget how to play football. And that's kind of what I subscribe this to Noah Fifita for as well. And that's why I put so much more of this on scheme, because I don't believe that we have players like this that they just forget how to play. As a matter of fact, they don't just forget how to play. That's where I'm, like I said, that's kind of where I'm at with this squad. Now, when I watch, what can be that next step, Taj Brooks went places, but Taj Brooks is also a, for a Texas Tech, he's a generational talent. He's one of the handful of best running backs in the country. He's going to play in the NFL. So he's going to get his. So I think you've got to factor in all of that, and then realize as well that what can Arizona do then at that point to be able to just mitigate those? But overall, like I said, the defense played more than good enough to be able to beat Texas Tech. I got no issues at all with what I saw from the defense. And honestly, I think that's going to continue to be the case. The issue is you got BYU coming up here, but then you got Colorado after that. Colorado's probably got the best skilled position players in the country. So that's going to be, I think that's going to be a little bit of an issue. But the big thing is, and just going back to the offense has got to be able to pick it up. The offense has got to be able to figure out how they can go about scoring enough points to be able to win. You can't get down into the red zone and fail. Not only can you not get down into the red zone and fail, you've got to be able to convert those points. And so far, that has obviously not been the case. But they move the ball better. I will give them that. But then also Texas Tech is certainly not a great defense. So there is that. Now, tomorrow, we're going to go really in depth on Dwayne Aquina. Dwayne Aquina has been the absolute man. Not only has Dwayne Aquina been the man, he's been somebody that you're like, all right, well, Arizona definitely got the right defensive coordinator. This man has forgotten more football than most coaches know, and it's showing out on the football field. He's young, or I mean, he's not young, but he's young in spirit. He's energetic, and you can just tell that football means a lot to him. The University of Arizona means a lot to him, and he wants to get this thing going right. So he's going to be somebody that I think, going forward, he is a massive, massive part of what Arizona football wants to do. Then you've also got, the coaches seem to be kind of going in line there. So there is that. But this is all going to come back to the offense. At the end of the day, the offense needed to be a top 15 offense in the country. So far, this has not been a top 15 offense in the country. And that's just not good enough. All right. But on that note, though, as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow. TTFN, ta-ta for now.